If you're starting to get interviews and you're not getting past the screening stage or the first interview, then you need to really sit down and evaluate, where am I failing? Is my technical knowledge not strong? Are my soft skills not strong? What can I be doing better? It was dark when I left, dark when I got home. It just was one of those situations where it wasn't mentally healthy. And so one day I just literally, it was lunchtime. I put my keys on the desk, my card on the desk. I broke my lease. I walked out of my job.
Everyone, David Bommel back with Heath. Heath, great to have you back on the channel.
Hey, great to be back. Appreciate it, David.
So Heath, I really want to thank you for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. Just so that everyone's aware, what we did is TCM put out an AMA and we got a whole bunch of questions. So, what can we ask Heath? So that's what I'm going to go through today. Heath, I've also watched a bunch of your videos and, done a bit of research. So I'm going to ask you questions from stuff that I've seen and questions that I get on my channel all the time. But hopefully we're going to cover a bunch of the questions that we got. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
That's great. So Heath, first question, this has come up quite a few times. Which certifications has TCM got? People aren't aware of all the certs. And one of the questions was, any plans for live training? But you do provide live training, I believe.
Yes, we do.
So perhaps you can take us on the journey, the certs that you currently have and the certs that you're going to perhaps develop. Another question that came up quite a lot was cloud certs.
Yeah, let's share a screen and we can talk about it. Yeah, so we've got several certifications. I think we've got 8 or 9 now. And so I'll kind of walk you through the journey of what we have and where we started. So we actually started with our PMPT certification. This is where we're most well known. And so our idea was to create a certification that mimicked a real world pen test. So we put you through sort of a gauntlet of an engagement. And so you have to perform open source intelligence. You have to go through and perform an external pen test, break into our network, perform an internal pen test. And then when you're all said and done, you have to write a report, deliver that report, and also deliver a debrief to our team. So what we wanted to do was put you through the real world of being a consultant. So you get 5 days. It's not a multiple choice exam, any of that stuff. And so all of our exams follow that format where we don't have multiple choice. It's all real world. You're going to take a couple days to do it and just kind of mirror what you would do if you were on a real engagement. So we have a few different exam categories. So we have the PMPT, which is where we first started, but we actually moved into a more junior one. So the PJPT, which is a network penetration test exam for juniors. And that one is just fully Active Directory hacking. So last time we were together, we did a bunch of Active Directory hacking. That would be all applicable to what this exam is. So this is kind of the baby, dip your toe in the water certification. And then you've got the PMPT, which is really more of that intermediate, really challenge you type certification. Tying into this, we've got this PCRP program, which goes with the PMPT. It's kind of an add-on. But it's what we call the Career Ready Professional certification. And so what you get with that is more of career coaching and guidance. So you do get a one-on-one session with a member of our team, kind of get you to where you need to go. You go through the PMPT training and the certification. Once you're through that, we put you through a soft skills course, which is pretty unique. So you go through how to write a resume, how to interview, what are behavioral questions, what's the STAR method, how do you answer those, how do you go about finding a job, how do you set up a blog or a website to talk about yourself, and just all these little intangibles that go a long way when it comes to the job process. We put you through a mock interview as well. And basically what we're doing is we are certifying that you are going to be employable, that we would hire you. It's the same actual questions that we ask for a junior pen tester, which is cool. You get a resume review. There's a lot of things that come with the program, and it just kind of gears you towards that real life. If you're trying to be a pen tester, going through all those steps, getting kind of beat up on your resume, getting beat up in your interview with us so that it doesn't happen in the real world. And so we've had a lot of success with that program. We've got a malware certification. This is actually developed by Matt Keeley, who works at Huntress now, a really smart guy. Again, one of those certifications where you have to dissect malware and actually analyze it and report back on what you're seeing. So very, very unique. We've got other certifications in the realm of mobile pen testing. So mobile device hacking, Android and iPhones. We've got junior web, and actually launched this past week was the PWPT. So PJWT, PWPT, similar to the PMPT, but this is for the web application side. So we've got a junior certification and then a more advanced certification on the PWPT side. We've got this OSINT researcher one that's pretty unique as well. I don't know of anybody that has it, but it's basically a certification where you get a random bank of questions that are given to you and you have to go out and actually find them. And there are various level of difficulties, but hey, where was this picture taken, or where is this person located, or track somebody of significant importance and report back on that. So really fun, touches on a lot of different OSINT categories that go with one of our courses. And then we also just launched not too long ago this IoT tester certification, which again is pretty unique because most IoT hacking is hands-on. Hardware hacking, we were able to write our own firmware here and be able to dissect it virtually, which is kind of nice. Saves a lot on cost, which is a big mission of ours, and doesn't require you to have any physical hands-on board, which is really nice as well. From the live training standpoint, we do have two that are in our repertoire right now. So we're doing a live web app penetration testing. That one's coming in July 26th. That's going to be our next one. That's going to be a 2-day training. So basically it's going to be junior to intermediate and kind of cover the PJWT and the PWPT type certification training. And then we have in September our hacking and defending Active Directory, which is some of what we covered last time we talked as well. Just how do you hack Active Directory? How do you defend it? We get more blue teamers in that course than we do actually get red teamers in that course because they're very interested in what we're doing on the red side. So from another perspective, we have a lot of cool things going on. We've got 3 full-time content developers right now. So the one just wrapped up PWPT. He's going to be going into next phase. His background is really in secure coding and development. So I could see us doing something there here in the near future where we actually teach developers how to code securely. It's something that we run into a lot of issues. I can even give you an example. Like our dev team right now, we're scaling up for a new platform that we're releasing, and we're running into a little bit of a bottleneck because our team knows how to develop securely, but we're bringing in some outside contractors that have years of experience, and they do not. Yeah. We still have to review all their code. We can bring on 10 of those. We can bring on 20 of those, but if they don't know how to securely code, we still have to do all the research and make sure that everything that they're submitting to us is good to go, because you don't want to be a security company that has insecure code. So so there's opportunities there. But a couple of things that we're working on right now that are really exciting. The SOC 101 course is what we're working on. So we're actually working on Blue Team content. We hired a full-time Blue Team content creator. So that SOC 101 course is going to be the entry-level Blue Team course, and then we're going to have a certification tied along with it. The SOC 101 course should be releasing in July. The Blue Team certification should be releasing sometime in September. And then we're also releasing a course that's going to be free. It's called Practical Help Desk. And so it's going to be completely hands-on. How do you perform as a help desk? And so kind of like an A+ certification, but again, instead of multiple choice, you're looking at a hands-on environment. We do plan to release a certification for that, probably pretty cheap on the certification side. We just want to make it a low barrier to entry, again, kind of going with our mission, and just start being that one-stop shop for training. So we're not just planning on being cybersecurity or just red team training. We're moving into blue team. We're moving into beginner level training. And we're just trying to be all encompassing with what we're doing. And you'll see a lot of that here coming soon, especially in the next few months.
So Heath, there were quite a few questions about advanced courses. Like you've got the malware course. Is there a more advanced one? Is there like the possibility that you'll do an OSCP type course, but like your style? Like people obviously want the beginner stuff, but there seems to be some interest in like some more advanced courses.
Yeah, absolutely. It is part of our roadmap. So the roadmap that we've been on has been this idea of work backwards before we move forwards. So you're seeing us put out this Practical Help Desk, and you're seeing us put out SOC 101 and a lot of junior-based certifications. But we are starting to come out with more intermediate and then hopefully advanced after that. So like we just released last week the PWPT. That's an intermediate certification that built on. PMPT pretty much rivals OSCP. And so our next plan would be to release something more advanced, like an OSCE type certification where it's a PMPT advanced and you have a pathway there. So our goal is to eventually build out pathways where we have a junior, intermediate, and advanced certification, and then also build out other pathways where if you go out and you get like a PMPT and a PWPT, then you get certified as kind of a overall like certified pen tester. So you have different roadmaps and pathways that we're going to build out. So we're just so focused right now on building out the core. But yes, we realize that, hey, a lot of our students have gone through the junior or even some of our intermediate training and they're wanting more. And we've got to build out content for them too. So we're getting into that phase here very soon.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the questions was about SOC and blue teaming. So more blue team content coming, right?
Yes. We realize red teamers are outnumbered 10-1. Not everybody needs a red teamer. Not every team has an offensive security person, but a lot of companies need blue teamers. And so for us, we do training very uniquely. Our training is video based. It's short, digestible videos, and it's not text. It's not anything like that. So For us, creating some sort of long format course that is hands-on, digestible, and allows people to actually understand what working in a SOC feels and looks like. It's going to be really exciting because we don't think there's anybody out there quite doing it like we want to do it. And so we got a lot of blue team content ideas that are coming up.
I love what you do with the training, right? Because video training, especially for I think the newer generation, is the way to go. Reading is so much harder. It's so much easier if someone just shows you.
I agree. For me personally, I can't read and comprehend easily. I'm one that sits down, I go to read a book, I'll read the same page 5 times because I'll see a sentence, I'll start thinking about that sentence, and my eyes will read the page, but my brain won't comprehend. And so for me, kinesthetic learning, hands-on, short, digestible videos, short attention span, that really helps me. And being able to see somebody walk me through what they're doing and then be able to explain that, I learn better that way. And so that's the way that I teach as well.
One of the things that a few people asked is cloud penetration testing. Is that on the horizon, perhaps?
It is. We've shied away from it just because the idea or the term of cloud pen testing to us as a consultancy is a little bit kind of a buzzword. And so if a client comes to us and they want a pen test, right? A pen test takes about a week. If they want an audit takes about a week. We prefer cloud auditing to cloud pen testing because cloud auditing, we get access to everything behind the scenes. We can see what's going on and we can go in there and say, hey, you're good or you're not good in these places. Cloud pen test, we have to go through and just say, okay, well, we're going to test at things. Maybe we see something, maybe we don't. We only have a week worth of time. And so it's a little bit more, I don't want to call it gimmicky. It's still relevant, but it's not what we would do. Like we don't perform cloud pen testing at TCM Security. We only perform cloud auditing. And so if you're going to see something from us, yes, you're going to see probably something in the cloud auditing space, more so than the cloud pen testing space. More of, hey, here's all the things that could go wrong and all the configurations that you could set up wrong. So that way somebody can go in and actually test those things. And it would be beneficial from an auditor's perspective or from a security defense perspective.
That's great. Question, I mean, I'm sure you get this all the time, and I've seen some of your videos where you address this, but let's get the 2024 version. Certs is a big one people always ask about, right? So I want to get to PNPT. Give us the path, Heath. Do I do OSCP? Do I go straight from, Security Plus to OSCP? I'm just making this up, but perhaps you can give us a proper path, right, for different people?
Sure. Yeah, I could talk through this. And so there's some certifications where they're nice to have, you don't necessarily need them. And there's some certifications where, I think in general, certifications are nice to have. They're not necessarily end all be all, right? And certifications are expensive. And so it just depends on your situation. But if you're just starting out, you're watching this video, you've never done anything in IT before, getting a good foundation in help desk is important. How do you fix a computer? What are the different technologies that computers use? Just understanding the core concepts of computing, very, very important. Now, if that leads to you going and getting your A+ certification, I think that's great, especially if you end up working on a help desk. And so everybody has their own paths. You'll see that when you look at cybersecurity, everybody's path to cybersecurity was different. So my path into cybersecurity was working on a help desk, and then I worked as a network engineer, and then I worked as a penetration tester. And you'll see people that completely skipped all those things and went right into penetration testing. And it's just everybody's a little bit unique. So core foundation of an A+ equivalent or help desk knowledge is important. Networking knowledge is very important. So again, network plus equivalent. Some people ask if you should get a CCNA. I think CCNA is good. If you go above and beyond that, I don't think you need to, like CCNP or any of those, you kind of start getting into more of, I want to be a network engineer versus I want to go be a pen tester or cybersecurity. Unless you're going into like network security, then that could be useful. Again, networking knowledge, what are your ports? What are your services? What ports are secure? What's not? You need to know all these things. Going into then building upon that is security knowledge. So something like your Security Plus would be really good. Layering in all of your security, what's secure again, what protocols are you looking for, what's not secure, understanding the basic foundations of cybersecurity. Very important. For us in cyber, a lot of us know Linux. I think knowing Linux is very important. So just going through, you don't have to get a Linux Plus certification. Like it's not going to move the needle. Me, I went and got it because I like challenging myself with certifications to test knowledge. But ultimately, you don't have to do that. It's one of those that like just go immerse yourself. I talk about it like it's another language. Like if you're trying to learn a foreign language, it's going to be a lot easier to go to that country and try to pick up from the locals than it would be to just go do Duolingo. So go work and operate in Linux for a week or two. Just make that your main operating system and work through that. See how it makes you feel. See how the issues you run into, and then Google them and solve them. It'll make you that much better at learning it. And then the other core foundation is programming. So you don't have to be a developer, but you do have to know how to read code. It helps with scripting. It helps with automation as well. Highly recommend learning Python or something similar, and just being able to go out there. And if you go download something from GitHub, for example, like an online repository, you want to make sure that what you're downloading is safe, especially if you're going to run it in a client environment, and just knowing what those tools are. So if you don't have that programming background, that can be very dangerous. And so those are the core foundational skills. You build upon it. So again, like I did help desk. I thought help desk was great. I worked for a managed service provider, so we had a lot of clients. I got to see Windows, Mac, Linux, all the different operating systems, all different versions of things, and it was nice. It was good. And then working as a network engineer prepared me to be a network pen tester. And so it was just kind of that gradual buildup. But ultimately, you need those core foundations before you can kind of jump into the deep end. A lot of people go and try to build a house without building the foundation. You got to make sure that you build the foundation first.
A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Linux, not necessarily the cert, but get the knowledge, programming, Python. And then am I ready to go for PNPT, or do I need to do something first?
Yeah, I mean, you would need ethical hacking training, but I would say if you have those core foundations, you can go for PNPT. We do have the junior, like the PJPT, for example, and the PJPT is not going to necessarily go land you a job, but it's going to kind of give you that confidence before you go into that deeper end of that training for PNPT. And there are other certifications out there, like OSCP is good in terms of like, hey, I'm going to put this on my resume and this is going to get me opportunities. And so it's kind of that nice, we call it gatekeeper certification. It's a nice one to kind of get through HR and go out there for skill set. So yeah, I mean, just getting the next step after the foundational training is really just honing in that ethical hacking training if you want to go and be a pen tester.
So PNPT, will it give me a job?
It will, yeah. I mean, if you go look right now and search for job postings, we're on quite a bit, which is awesome to see. But yeah, you just gotta, I mean, anything helps. Really, like what I tell people is for your resume, you're being compared on a piece of paper. So like certifications only go so far because you're competing with people on paper that also have certifications. A bachelor's degree may only go so far because on average, most people have a bachelor's degree entering this field. And so it's just one of those things that like, how can you set yourself apart? Blogs help. Being a YouTuber could help. Going to conferences, volunteering helps. Doing CTFs, doing Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, or any like having a home lab, anything that just shows like I'm really passionate about what I'm doing can help you stand out above and beyond just these certifications as well.
I love the situation you're in, right? Because you went on this journey and you were doing pen testing as an employee, but now you're on the other side hiring. So it's great to get your perspective of both sides, right? Because like one of the questions was, you know, do I need to get certs? Do I need to get a degree?
Yeah, I mean, we are in the weird place of being a training company that also is a consultancy. Most companies that do training aren't. And so, yeah, we do get to see people and hire and look at the profiles of the average candidates. And you don't need a degree. I think it's just more likely that somebody has one nowadays than doesn't. Like majority of our applicants, I think it's like close to 80% have a degree of some sort. But IT and especially cyber is one of those fields that's so new that there aren't really great degree programs at most places that are out there. Like there are some great cybersecurity, but with cybersecurity, it changes so fast that if the program's not constantly updating or you're not just doing policy work, then it very well could be stale or out of date by the time you're even going through it. And so we don't necessarily look at a degree. What I tell people is you have to weigh the opportunity costs of a degree. If you can go for free and it's going to make more money long term, perfect. If it's going to cost you $100,000 and you're only going to get a $5,000 bump over the next 10 years, it's not worth it. So you have to really go and say, what's this going to cost me? What are the benefits? And how much money could I have earned not going to college in that time? And what would my salary look like? And so just looking at opportunity cost, ultimately, do you need a degree? No. But it does check a box. So if you ever want to go and work for a place where it's a hard requirement, that opens more doors for you. If you ever want to go on and get a master's and maybe work management level, that opens doors for you. So it just depends on your situation and what you want to do. Same with certifications. I've known plenty of people that have gone and gotten jobs with no degree, no certifications, anything, but you have to be different on paper. So if you don't have those, how are you going to stand out? Maybe it's going and showing like, hey, I work bug bounty hunting and I make tons of money doing this. Cool. Or I've got CVEs. Fine. Like, what is it going to be that stands out for you that says I can replace that knowledge because I have it here? And so you're really competing on a sheet of paper unless you're out there doing networking, which I think is very important as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you highlighted that. So, because what if you're basically answering the questions that I've got here. Like one of the questions was, can I get a job without a cert? Can I get a job without a degree? And how do I, if let's say I haven't got money for a cert or I haven't got money for a degree, how do I differentiate myself?
Yeah, that's a great question. YouTube is an amazing resource. There's tons and tons and tons of videos and content out there. So go start watching YouTube. You can learn everything that you need. You just have to aggregate it yourself. So go out there, even look at one of our course curriculums and just say, oh, here's all the things I need to learn. I'm going to piece this together and go try to find this on YouTube. Put that together, put a home lab together, start working and just networking, putting yourself out there, like joining a community, going to conferences, getting to know people, and just showing your passion can really go a long way. Who you know is just as important as what's on your resume. And so it's very difficult, like for people in this field, they feel like a majority of us are introverted. So that we think about, oh, I don't want to go to a conference and actually talk to somebody. That's weird. So it's tough, but you can still network online. LinkedIn's a great resource. If you're watching this, and you don't have a LinkedIn, definitely create a LinkedIn, go out there and just start communicating and talking to people. And what I tell people too is like, you are always somewhere that somebody else wants to be. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I can't help you, I just got started. But if you're like 2 weeks along, you're 2 weeks further along than somebody else was. And so don't be afraid to go out there and answer questions if somebody needs help, because you want to be, when it's your time to get help, you want to have that good karma back on your side. You want to be able to get what you take as well. So you want to make sure that you're giving back as much as you're taking from the community. So just put yourself out there, and I just tell people, be a good person, plant seeds, and that will actually pay dividends in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, imposter syndrome is something that comes up a lot, and I want to talk about imposter syndrome when it comes to teaching. So you've mentioned that now. I think also we had a lot of questions about like starting a cyber business. So we'll come back to that just for everyone. I put timestamps below again where you can jump to specific topics. So I think you've answered this already, Heath, but CCNA versus Network Plus, if I want to become a pen tester like you?
Oh gosh, Network Plus is the bare minimum. CCNA I think is the better certification. It's more challenging. It's more hands-on. It is Cisco based, but you still learn a lot of the commands. Like, yeah, are you going to use that CLI? You might. I've hacked into Cisco devices and ended up having to dump out configurations and steal the password. And so there are good uses for it, but you are going to. Like Network Plus has the limitations of being a multiple choice exam. CCNA, you're actually going to get hands-on CLI and be able to understand what you're configuring and why you're configuring it. And I think that just does so much more for a learning experience. And again, the exam is more difficult by far, and it's more challenging. And so if you really want to like really understand the core foundations of networking, I think CCNA is the better certification there.
Let's say I do some pen testing certs. Can red certs be used for blue teaming?
Absolutely. If you actually look at some blue team job postings, you'll see offensive security certifications on there because they're so useful. If you know what the attacker is doing and the attacks that they're likely to perform, it's going to make you that much better of a defender. Same thing, like going from offense to defense, it just helps knowing the playbook already. So we get a lot of defenders in our classes, and I think I mentioned it earlier, but like our defending Active Directory is more blue teamers that come through that than red teamers, because it is that much more useful for them to understand the mindset of an attacker.
You mentioned this already a bit, I think, but let's highlight it because it came up a few times. Most important skills that I need to get as a penetration tester.
Yeah, so from a technical side, again, those core foundations where you have help desk, networking, basic cyber, programming, and Linux going to help you tremendously. I think what we don't talk about enough are the soft skills. So again, going out there and networking, building a home lab, going to conferences, volunteering, making a blog, participating in CTFs, just doing those extracurriculars. So no, you don't have to do all of those. Just pick one and do something to show you're passionate about this. And those soft skills go a long way to help drive the technical. And a lot of us are very technical, but when you get into consulting, especially, which is what a lot of cyber is, you're having to write reports. So you have to have decent grammar and report writing abilities. You have to give debriefs. So you have to be able to get up there and talk in front of people and say, here is your product. Here's what I did to your product. And I'm sorry, but you need to fix all these things. And so like you have to communicate very technical things to people that may not be technical. And so there's a lot of just other skill sets that you need besides just being this technical individual. So if you can focus on those soft skills, it's going to help you tremendously on the other side of things.
We had quite a few questions, and I'm assuming you get this all the time as well. Advice for getting a job, but perhaps you can pitch it for different people, Heath. Let's say I'm 17 years old and I want to get into cyber, and perhaps I'm later in life. Maybe I always laugh when people ask questions like, David, I'm 25. Is it too late for me? So like, let's say I'm 30 and maybe 40. can you give us like advice? How do I move from whatever I'm doing now into like becoming like you?
Sure. Yeah. If you're younger, first of all, I'm jealous because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't even switch into IT until I was 26. So the kids that are out there, I see kids getting certifications at like 15 and 16 years old. I wasn't even thinking about IT at that point. And so if you're younger, just do your due diligence, go out there and understand what your learning path is, especially if you're like 17, you've got the decision now. Do I go to school? Should I go to school? What should I go to school for? I'm a big advocate for computer science over a cybersecurity program. I think computer science is a nice fallback. Even if you don't end up going into cyber, you still have that computer science background, which opens a lot of doors for you. And so you have to weigh those opportunity costs again of, hey, is it worth going to college? What do I need to go do? Building those core foundational skill sets. If you're older and you're in a working field, right? Like I was already working as an accountant when I made the switch to IT. It's a lot of it is just that transition period, especially if you're making more money than you would be. You have to kind of calculate that too. Some people are already making what, $70,000, $80,000. And if you have to go cut back and say, oh, I'm going to go work help desk, maybe make $40,000, $50,000 a year, that is a pretty tough punch to take. So you have to evaluate where am I okay switching? So this is where it comes in where, hey, yeah, it's nice to have paths. Like I love my help desk experience and I took a pay cut to go on a help desk. But for some people, if you're making a good salary, you've got a family to support, all those other things, it may not make sense to do that. So you may have to just sit there and study, go maybe get an A+ certification, but no intention to actually work a help desk job. Same thing, you may go do network studies, but no intention there. And you just keep building your skill set until it's time to actually go start applying for a cybersecurity role. So you can have that maybe that transfer of salary that's close to equivalent. And so everybody's situation is a little bit different. The core foundational skills and what you actually need to learn are going to be the same. It's just how you manage your time and what are your costs and where are you at in life to be able to evaluate. If you're younger, hey, do I go to school? Is it worth it? What's the cost going to be? That kind of thing. Versus if I'm older, okay, maybe I don't need college, or maybe I already have a college degree in another thing, which is perfectly fine, by the way. Like college is college, it just checks the box. Like there's IT is in general and cyber in general is so new of a field that we don't hold you not having a certain degree against you. So it's really situationally dependent, but really going out there and getting those core skills and then building upon those are going to be important.
No, I think it's great that you mentioned, like you were 26, you said, when you moved into IT, right?
I was,
You were an accountant before that?
I was.
So I think people who are older or further along in their journey have got other skills perhaps. So did accountancy help you sort of in your journey?
Tremendously. I mean, I was a consultant in accounting. So I was working in public accounting. I was going and doing a lot of the same things. I was doing technical work. Sure, it wasn't IT. I was going out. I was writing a lot of reports. I was giving debriefs to CFOs and CEOs about their financials. And so that consultancy experience really just translated immediately. The technical work changed, but I'm still writing reports. I'm still giving debriefs. I'm still doing all that. And then, when I am running a business now, I do all the bookkeeping and all the accounting, and it's just helped tremendously for budgeting and finance and being able to plan and scale what we need to do. So my background's helped absolutely.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've got a degree in accountancy, and it's amazing how that's helped me over the years, especially in business, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just skills that like go with you, and they have a lot of applications outside of just the accounting world.
And I think, that's something for everyone to remember. If you've been a manager and you've done public speaking, that's a great skill to use, right?
Yeah, any of this. Like you can take any certain situation and put it to your resume. That's what we tell a lot of people is this field is, again, full of people coming from different paths. I've seen pharmacists, literal doctors transitioning into cyber, lawyers. So you have this other field and you just got to be able to say, like, here are the core assets or skills that I learned while being in this profession that directly apply to this. A lot of it could be customer service or those non-technical skills. Like we're more inclined to want somebody. It's easier to teach technical skills to somebody for us than it is to teach customer service, for example. If you've got a really good customer service background, you're good with people, those are a lot harder to teach. So if you can like show those things off in your resume, they actually do help quite a bit.
I think you've answered this already, but it's come up quite a few times. Do I need to learn to program? They reference you, John Hammond, Ben, many other people. Do I have to learn how to program like in Python, Java, etc.?
Yeah, I would say you need to be able to read code at a minimum. Being a developer takes time, especially if you're not doing it full time. So like if you say, hey, I really don't love doing this, then that's fine. For me personally, I didn't love development until much later on in life because I realized how much easier it made my life as I started programming. And so just being able to understand and be able to read it is okay. So what are variables, what are loops, what are conditional statements, like what are you seeing in this code that's actually happening? So that way, before you download it and go run it in client environment, you know that it's safe. How do you evaluate safety of code? And so being able to read it is fine. You don't have to necessarily develop all the logic to be able to develop. That's okay. Just depends on your passion ultimately and where you want to focus your time and energy. It's not something that you need to be successful day one in this field.
A lot of questions about AI affecting pen testing. There's worries about AI taking jobs. They want to know, how is AI going to change pen testing? So perhaps you can give us like sort of your experience with AI at the moment and sort of where you see it's going.
Yeah, I think right now it's a great assistant. I use AI all the time for just any little task that I can automate or even just put through and have it generate some information for me. It's great.
Yeah.
Even for YouTube videos, for blog writing, for day-to-day tasks, even for programming, like it will help save a lot of time. But AI is confidently incorrect as well at this stage. And so it's one of those things that you almost have to be a subject matter expert to know and to prompt and say, hey, do these things, but you have to be able to verify that it did those things right because it doesn't know. And so it's one of those things right now that it's a great tool, great assistant, great time saver. I'm more productive because of it. It's not something that's replacing a pen tester in the near future. 10 years down the road, sure, as advancements happen, I can't say that that's not going to happen. But to be able to think like a hacker, it takes a lot of skill sets, and there's no tool out there that's going to be able to dig deep and really think like we do, like a human does. I'm not saying it's going to be impossible. I'm sure it's going to happen in our lifetime, but it's not something to be concerned about, at least in the next decade. As we go. But it's just one of those things that as time changes, we have to adapt. And cybersecurity is one of those fields where you're always studying and learning the next thing, or you are getting left behind. So if you're worried about changes and you want a job that's just like, hey, I want to learn this thing, go to school for it, and I'm done, that's not cyber. So AI is just a part of that changing atmosphere. I think ultimately it's in the next 5 years, I could see it replacing low-level jobs like a help desk job. We're already starting to see like chatbots and things that are out there that are answering questions for you, and you don't actually need to go out there and interact with somebody. So I could see if you're on the lower end of the totem pole right now, yes, there's some concerns there. But from a pen tester, cybersecurity, this is an advanced IT field. I don't think I have any concerns about this right now.
That's great. Yeah, because a lot of worries about that. So at the moment, if I wanted to get into cyber, you'd still recommend it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we're severely deficient. I think we're still in the US alone 3.5 million, somewhere in that range of jobs that we're going to need by 2030. And we just don't have the people or the talent yet to fill those roles. You'll see that a lot of the people that bounce around in the industry are people that already have jobs, and because we don't have enough people to fill those open roles. So we need people. If you're interested in watching this video, this is a great field, great way to make money. It's a great way to I come from a poor background, and this was something that was able to like completely change the trajectory of my lifestyle because of cyber. So it's a lot of work. You got to really like the work, and you got to like to study and really be engaged with this. But if you can, it's amazing field, great work-life balance for me. I wouldn't change anything.
I'm glad I wanted to ask you about, because there's more questions about jobs, but let's talk about what you've just mentioned now. So Heath, perhaps you can tell us about your background, right? Because I've seen some of your amazing pictures of the cars that you have these days and over the years.
Yeah.
You really like your cars.
Yeah.
But perhaps you can tell us your journey, right? You didn't come from money, but through hard work, dedication, and, seeing what was out there, you've got to where you are today. So perhaps you can give us like a quick overview of, your story, just for people who don't know you.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up really poor. We were on government assistance basically my entire childhood. I grew up an only child. My mom was an only child. My grandparents pretty much passed away when I was a kid. And so,
sorry, man.
Yeah, thanks. My mom passed away when I was 19. So I'm the last surviving member of my family. And it was really kind of at that point that was like a turning point for me. She'd always advocated for school. I was first generation high school graduate in my family. So obviously first generation college and everything else. And She was really big on just, hey, you really need to go to college, make something of yourself. And so I went through college. I picked accounting because it was just a safe field. It was something where it was like, hey, yeah, I'm driven by money here in this decision because I need to make sure that I don't stay poor. I want to get out of this. And so accounting was one of those things. It's like, hey, everybody needs an accountant. We'll do this. They make pretty good money. For me, I got out. I was making $40,000 a year out of school, 100,000 plus in debt, and I was working. God, I can't even tell you, 80 plus hour weeks. And so when you calculate it, it was like, hey, I could go work at work in fast food and make minimum wage and still be making more money than I'm doing right now, working all these hours. And so I got burned out pretty quick. The work-life balance is something that was really important to me. And so I remember like I was chasing money so hard that I went and I ended up moving to the middle of nowhere to take a job for $55,000 a year doing plant accounting. And I just ended up with like the micromanager from hell. I had just a terrible job. I was driving, it was an hour each way to work basically. And it was dark when I left, dark when I got home. It just was one of those situations where it wasn't mentally healthy. And so one day I just literally, it was lunchtime. I put my keys on the desk, my card on the desk. I broke my lease. I walked out of my job. And I just traveled, ended up in New Mexico of all places, but I just like started driving and ended up in New Mexico, decided I was going to drive for Uber. And while I was waiting for that, I thought Uber was going to be a lot quicker than it was. It took like a month to get in. I found a job before I was able to drive for Uber, but I started just applying for jobs. And so I knew that like I had a lot of computer experience and I wasn't like incredibly savvy, but I knew how to fix things. And so I just started looking for like basic help desk jobs and ended up, I remember the job that I actually got, I sat there, I was reading the job description. It wanted 3 years of experience. It wanted an A plus, a net plus, all these things. I didn't have any of that. And so I was just like, I literally hovered over the X on that because I was like, I'm not going to get this job. And I ended up just applying anyway because I felt like I could do the job. And I went in there and I got an interview. I was honest. I said, I don't know what I don't know. I'll take less money to be here. And I ended up going from that $55,000 a year job back down to a $40,000 a year job. And they gave me the opportunity and I learned a ton. And that's kind of what kicked off my journey. And so, yeah, I'm a really big advocate for affordable training because I couldn't afford any certification at the time. I was thankful enough to have somebody pay for the A plus, Net plus, Security plus that I went through during my time in the help desk. And then I was able to get another job to pay for a CCNA and OSCP. And so I wouldn't be able to do that on my own. And they're very expensive trainings, expensive certifications. I mean, my CCNA training, one of them I went through was like $5,000.
Yeah, it was crazy in those days.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things that like, we don't ever want to see anybody be priced out of an education or training, especially from countries where the cost of living is significantly different than the US. And so, a big advocate for trying to change trajectories, and cybersecurity changed mine. My first job in cyber was, I think, $105,000. And that was like incredible. And it's only been up from there. I know plenty of people making great money with just a few years of experience in this field. I don't want to sell a dream. And I don't also I don't like some influencers out there, they'll sell you like, this like go work from a beach, make $200,000 a year. I don't like that.
Yeah, right.
Like I want to stress this too. Like you can work hard and not be successful, but you can't be successful without working hard. I know plenty of people that make way less money than I do and work 2 times as hard just to keep up. And I am very aware of that. And so like, don't just think because you bust your ass, like you're going to be successful, but if you need it to be successful. And so this is one of those fields, if you are willing to put in the work though, that you can get rewarded for it. And it'll take you as far as you're willing to go. And so it's incredible right now. And the opportunities are just incredible for cyber.
I'm glad there's a few things I want to hit on there. You mentioned work-life balance. There's quite a few questions about that. How on earth do you keep up and, maintain a healthy lifestyle, right?
Yeah. For cyber in general, I think like if you're going into like pen test job, right? Or whatever it might be, asking about the work-life balance during the interview. I think this is where a lot of people fail. Like we'll get to an interview part where we say, hey, do you have any questions for us? And people are like, no, we're good. No, you should be interviewing the company that's interviewing you. What is the training program here? What is the work-life balance? What am I expected to do? What's the promotion opportunities? What do my first 90 days look like? There's a lot of good questions that you can ask. Work-life balance is very important. For me, when I was first looking for my first pen test job, I interviewed at several places. I remember one specifically was like 80% travel. Absolutely not. I
Wow.
didn't want to be
Yeah.
gone that long. So you need to get these things out in the open ahead of time. Find somewhere, even if work-life balance means more to you than a salary, find somewhere that pays a little bit less, but says, hey, you're guaranteed 40 hours a week here, and that's it. There was one company that was out there and they were selling this dream of just like this awesome place to work, benefits. And then you start talking to the manager, this is me, and you realize like, okay, well, this is a 50 to 60 hour a week job. I'm brand new. And they said, hey, it's sink or swim. We're not going to train you. You just need to come in and be able to do this. And I backed out of that job process because I realized this is not the quality of life that I want. So you have to do your own due diligence on the employers. Glassdoor is great. Go talk to other people that are out there and working. Go talk to people that are ex-employees. Get their opinion. Like, it doesn't hurt to just go ask people what they think of a company or a specific job, and really just got to pick what's good for you. But yeah, as somebody coming in this field, work-life balance is important. For me, like CEO, it's like one of the harder things as you scale and grow a company. Delegation is very, very, very important. And it's one of those things that's taken me a long time to really be able to learn and do something. And it's hard because you learn and you implement these processes and you get really good at doing them. So something that may take me 30 minutes, if I go show somebody how to do it, they may take 2 to 4 hours. So it's very easy in your head to be like, oh, I can do this in 30 minutes. I'll just go do this. But you fill up your day with all these little, I can do this in 30-minute tasks, and you don't have time to actually do the job that you need to do. And guess what? Those people that are taking 2 to 4 hours, eventually they're going to be able to do it in 30 minutes as well. It takes time and repetition, and you have to learn that, hey, somebody takes time to actually build up to these skill sets that you already have because you've taken your time to build those. And so being able to delegate those tasks and focus on things that you're really good at is critical for work-life balance.
I love that. I want to get to talking about like how you transition from like employee to the business and why you started it and advice, because there are quite a few questions about that. But before that, a lot of questions about, are there still jobs and opportunities? It's too competitive. There's like comments about it's dried up. There are no beginner jobs. But you kind of mentioned earlier that, there's a demand for people. So perhaps you can answer, like, there's a bunch of questions about this, like, I can't get a job, or, all the opportunities are gone. Cyber is not as what it was. What's your take on that, Heath?
Yeah, it's tough. I do believe some of it, and I've seen some of the other side that counter argues a little bit too. So from one side, yes, the market dried up a little bit. There was, a period of time where nobody was hiring. I think we're kind of coming back out of that. Job demand, job growth is back up. And so a lot of it was, maybe quasi recession looked like it was happening. And so a lot of companies got scared, started doing layoffs. Sure. For us, we're seeing a lot of regulations and laws passed that are requiring pen testing and requiring cybersecurity. So the field is going to continue to grow and need people.
Yeah.
From somebody that is on the other side that sees a lot of resumes, what I can tell you is that for every job posting that we actually put out there, we probably get 10 good resumes for every 100. And I'm not saying all of the ones are bad, but a lot of people are just putting their resume out there with no qualifications whatsoever at a job and then saying, well, I'm not getting a job. Or people are not having their resumes looked at. You may be qualified. And if you truly think you're qualified, like, there's baby steps here. If you truly think that you're qualified and you're not getting any callbacks on job postings and you're submitting enough, quantity does matter. Like, if you're saying, oh, I submitted to 5 jobs, somebody called me back, that's variance. If you submit to 100 jobs and nobody calls you back, that's a problem. And so you need to have your resume looked at. If you truly think, like, I should be getting calls back, something is wrong with your resume. If you're starting to get interviews and you're not getting past the screening stage or the first interview, then you need to really sit down and evaluate, where am I failing? Is my technical knowledge not strong? Are my soft skills not strong? What can I be doing better? And so it's baby steps along the way. And I think a lot of people are really failing at the resume stage. I get some really bad ones. Like, I think I've seen an 18-page resume. I'm not reading it. I'm just throwing it away. Yeah. Wow. Like your resume should be 1, maybe 2 pages, depending on how much experience you have. If you're an educator, like a researcher, cool. You're expected to have longer format resumes. But for most people, 1 to 2 pages is enough. And so you really need to be able to tell me your story. And especially if I have 100 of these that I've got to look at, I'm flipping through these quick. You got to pass the eye test, is what we call it. And so what does that look like? Like, show me your education, your training, your certifications, whatever it might be, right up front, or your work experience, whatever I need to see, it needs to be front and center. I shouldn't have to go digging for it on a resume. So I think a lot of people fail there too. I think, like, overall, if you're interested in this field, keep studying, put yourself out there, get your resume looked at. There are plenty of opportunities for people trying to break in. You do have to go out there and look for them. Network for these jobs too. Like, if you're not out there talking to people, like you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because people are going to hire, or more likely to hire, people that they know or have met before than they would be just some random person. So this all goes back to a lot of core foundations here, but I think there's plenty of opportunity and to break in. You gotta be able to be utilizing the right resources to do so.
That's great. Quite a few questions about should I go directly into cyber or get a different job first? I mean, your journey was help desk, network engineer, cyber, and I love what you said that everyone's journey is different. I think there's so much truth in that. We all have our own unique paths. But as a general, rule, should I go directly into cyber? Should I go into help desk? What's your take?
Yeah, again, everybody's journey is different. It depends. Like if you're making 80 grand right now and you're gonna try to go to a $40,000 job, it might not make sense, right? Like, and so that depends on your situation. But ultimately, like I don't regret anything that I did. I loved working the help desk. I think I had the most fun and like learning experience wise because I'm just absorbing everything new. Network engineering was great. The pen test job was great. So like if you want to take that path, great. I'm not going to be here to say that's the only path to take. I think work experience is good. I think it's useful. I think it makes you a better pen tester, but can you still go out there and be a great pen tester without having that experience? Absolutely. So you just have to do what's best for your situation.
I love that. So Heath, let's switch gears. You went from employee to running a business to scaling a business. I mean, scaling is hard. Perhaps you can give people advice who want to start their own pen testing business. Perhaps like give us the history of, why you decided to start your own business, sort of the lessons you've learned. If you were talking to your younger self today, like, I want to do this today, what's your advice? Take us down that journey.
Sure. Yeah. So for us, how we started was actually, I was part of this community and we were in a Slack group essentially. And we started identifying other military members. So I'm former military. And so we just started identifying other people. And it was kind of that familiarity, just getting to know people that are trying to transition into cybersecurity. And so every time we talk to somebody and they're like, oh, I was in the military. It's like, oh, cool. Join our DM. We just add a new DM and we'd make it, it got bigger and bigger. And then Slack gets to a point where I think it's 9 people you can have in a DM. So we went to the channel and we said, hey, will you start for us just a private military channel and we just add people? And they said, well, you're too much of a liability. What if you're sharing secrets in here? And so we just went and started our own Slack. And so that Slack was called VetSec or VeteranSec, which is still around today. It's a 501c3 now. It's a nonprofit. And basically it was just meant to help people transition into cyber. And so as part of that program, I started just creating these videos for YouTube where it was like basic networking skills. I think I called it like networking for hackers, and then just making like basic ethical hacking videos and just putting them on YouTube for the VetSec group. And those got picked up elsewhere. Like it started taking off on YouTube unintentionally. And it got to the point where I was working as a pen tester and there were clients coming to the company I was working for and we saw Heath on YouTube. We want Heath to work on our projects. And so I didn't see any kickback from that. I was like, oh, you're going to give me like 10% here, and nothing, no referral bonus, nothing. And so that's where the light bulb went off. It's like, hey, they're making money off of me and my likeness, but I'm not seeing anything from it. I could probably go do this on my own. And so I have a video out there. If you actually go look on my channel, it's talking about like, hey, I quit my job to go start my business. And that it talks about like, that was like day one of my journey of here's how much money I'm making. I was making $140,000 a year. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was making $140,000 a year. And it's like, what do I need to make in order for this to be a successful journey? So first of all, you have to have 6 months of expenses saved up, if not more, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to go out there and live off of this with no income really coming through. And how am I going to make this money? So like I kind of talked about like where I'm going to go, how much money I need to make, what's my break-even point, because you're now paying both sides of taxes. You're paying a lot of extra things as an employer that you're not paying as an individual when you work for a company, and you got to do your own benefits, all that fun stuff. During that process, I had a couple of clients reach out, and my big thing is like, where was I going to differentiate? I thought we were going to be a consulting company. So I went out there and I made a consulting website, started doing services. We got a few clients. I think the first 6 months, which was our first year, because we launched in June, we did like $40,000 in revenue. It wasn't a lot. But what was kind of cool is it gave me a lot of time to do other things. So I still was working on live streaming because I didn't have a full-time job. I was working on creating course content, and I ended up actually creating the Practical Ethical Hacking course, which took off for us. So we were able to launch that. And I remember the sales just being astronomical in the first week. I couldn't even believe it. And it was really just like going off of things that, hey, these are all the trainings that, I wish I saw before I became a pen tester, and let's make this affordable training. And so it just dropped that on Udemy and it took off. And it felt like overnight we became a training company that did consulting as opposed to a consulting company that did training. And so just kept doing that. Like I got more consulting gigs from YouTube and from Udemy, and then just started releasing more courses and content. Eventually, we grew to the point where Udemy didn't make any sense for us anymore. So we launched our own academy platform that allowed us to bring in other creators and pay creators for, kind of basically, hey, we'll advertise your courses. You have them on our platform. We'll have a revenue split. And we did that, helped us scale more. Eventually, we released a PMPT certification. And so, again, just wanting to do something different that wasn't a multiple choice certification, that took off and did really well. And so these little scales happened. And because of the income we were making, we were able to hire a developer. A developer launched an exam platform because we were not scalable at all. Like when the PMPT launched, you had to reserve a time through a calendar link. We could not reset your exam if somebody was starting their exam. We could not stop an exam if somebody was starting or resetting their exam. So we had to follow a very strict calendar. We were able to build an exam platform that allowed for self-service and autonomy. So if 10 people right now go start an exam, that's fine. Or if you're going to reset your exam, you can do it. So it helped on help desk tickets and all that. And we were just able to build. So that allowed us to scale our certifications. Our consulting wing has scaled. It's allowed us to hire content creators. And we've been able to build out our academy with other courses. And so it's just been this progression that has grown significantly for us. And so for me, if I'm giving you advice, know what your area of concentration is going to be and how you're going to differentiate. So if you're going to be a consulting service, for example, you want to start your own consultancy, cool. How are you going to differ? Is it going to be on price? Is it going to be on reputation? Are you going to start locally and get clients? Who's your vertical going to be? For us, it was going to be reputation. So I know, like, I'm well respected on the internet as a pen tester. People think that I have the skill set. They know that I have the knowledge. Cool. I'm going to go off that reputation. So I'm not going to charge the lowest price. I'm also probably not going to charge the highest price because I'm not competing with Deloitte and those other big name companies that are charging $400 or $500 an hour. So you have to understand your price point, where you belong. Hey, maybe you are a cheap company. Maybe you're local and you're affordable. Maybe you target a specific vertical where you go into medical pen testing or whatever it might be. You have to say, what is going to differentiate and how are people going to buy from me and not my competitor? You have to have money. Like you have to have your money saved up. Ideally, you have money as well to spend on the business. Like having a website, having all the startup costs, being able to have tools that you need. You're looking at probably anywhere from $2,000-$3,000 to $5,000. And if you want to get even a little bit better, like logo design and not go through like Fiverr for everything, have a really good quality product, you're probably looking at a little bit more. So how much money can you invest? And then being able to sell, like how are you going to sell what you're going to go local? You're going to go knock on doors. You're going to cold call people. Are you going to have good SEO? Are you going to write blogs? Like what is your long-term plan to be able to get this business running? Depending on your funding and what you might want to do could be your trajectory. Like SEO is a really good one. I have a good friend that runs a consultancy and they did it all on SEO and basically learning how to write blogs and build that out. And so it could be something where you start writing blogs now, you build that website, start investing some money while you're still employed and making money. And then as the leads start coming through, cool, then you start answering those leads, get some business and then build that up. So you just got to be careful like with your non-competes and those sorts of things, as long as you're not like going and taking clients from your current company and working through those things, like consult a lawyer first on a lot of this stuff. But like there's strategies that you can take, but you really just have to understand who you're going to sell to, how you're going to sell it, having money saved up, and how you're going to differentiate as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions was like prerequisites to start a pen testing agency or company. I think you've kind of mentioned that. Any other ideas?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a pen tester to start a pen testing company. Like if you're really good at sales, I know people that have no idea about cybersecurity at all, but they just are really good with calling and talking to people. And you have to learn the pain points of a company and be able to sell them on things. But ultimately, like if you're going to go start this and you want to do it right, if you're not good at sales, then definitely being a good technical person. Sales and marketing are probably the two biggest areas to start funding first. So if you do start getting money in, spending money on marketing, spending money on sales, don't go spend money on like PPC or, cost per click type advertising. Like, don't go advertise on Google or LinkedIn right away. It's very expensive. Like, and if you don't get it tuned in, like we tried it early on where we were spending $30 a click, and you're talking, people were Googling literal pen testing, and we were getting clicks for that. And so it's just like, you need to make sure that it's fine tuned. It's very expensive. Just go out there and write blogs, do SEO. There's a great book that's called They Ask, You Answer. And the core concept of this book is, hey, if somebody's asking this question, you should be writing a blog or content about it. And there are no dumb questions. So what somebody would ask you, you probably want to write a blog about. And, I had a friend that literally lived by that book, and they grew a consultancy and had great success with it.
It seems like social media, putting stuff out there is great to do for an individual, but also for a business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our social media following is significantly larger than most cybersecurity companies. And it helps because we don't do any outbound sales. Most companies are paying for advertising and things like that, but you have to have a big budget. Usually you have investors. We are bootstrapped. We don't have any investors. So it's one of those things that's like, we have a team now. That's great. But before, it's just posting on social media and getting traction, word of mouth. And we've always called the consultancy, especially, just the snowball that runs downhill. Because as more people talk about it, as you get that more clients, that reputation, people are coming back, it just gets bigger and bigger every year. And for us, it's been the way to grow it. But there's, everybody has strategies. It just depends on how much money you have as well to be able to allocate to certain things.
I mean, you've got the course where you're teaching skills, right? One of the questions was you need to create a webinar or a course on how to start a cybersecurity business.
Yeah, it's something I've thought about. It's just kind of like, I don't want to be that guy that goes out there. It's like, take my course for $1,000 and learn how to be a millionaire and all these fun things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sell anybody a dream, because there's a lot of things here. I read a really good book a couple of years ago. It was called 12 Months to 1 Million. I think it's really great. And the whole time he's just like, entrepreneurship sucks. Like it really does. And it's not like him trying to tell you that like you shouldn't do it, but it's just like, I'm telling you the reality of this. It's long hours, and like there's a lot of just things that you could do everything right and it still not go right. But like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. But like, you got to understand before you get into this what you're getting yourself into, because it is a lot of work. But yeah, it's something I've considered. I would just have to go about creating a course like this very delicately, but it's something that could happen at some point.
I mean, that's what I love about you, Heath. It's you're not trying to like sell this dream, like in the lifestyle, like work 4 hours and you'll be a millionaire on the beach, like you said. You know, it's important to give the reality, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to work really hard. I mean, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's opportunity for exits and things like that. But the amount of work that goes into it, like we just see people's successes online, and that's really hard. And a lot of people are like, oh, I think I can go do that. And sure, like I encourage people to go try. It's just like, it's not made for everybody. And so you just have to kind of, that's one of the hardest parts of running a business. I think that's one of the questions earlier too, is like, for me, the hardest thing to learn has been people. And like, there are really good people like that I've had to let go from the company that I consider really good friends. But like, you have to make those decisions that just suck sometimes, where, is how do I get somebody to work better or perform better? And if they're not, what do I do in that situation? It makes it that much harder if you're hiring friends or people that you know. And just being able to manage people. Everybody's different. Like being able to know, hey, this person needs or wants micromanagement, or this person doesn't need anything. Just let them go do their own thing. And you can't just manage in one style and expect to be successful. So there's just it's a lot of learning curves along the way, and a big journey along the way, especially as you scale. Managing 10 people versus 25 versus 50, it's all different. So you just have to kind of brace that impact that's coming. And again, it's not for everybody, but if it's something that you're truly passionate about, like I would not go just work for another company. Again, I can't see that happening.
But your degree, I think you did some business stuff in the past, right? That helped you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the undergrad in accounting, I've got a MBA, and so it's one of those things that, yes, like having that business experience helped. And really, business school was unique in a lot of ways. Like, sure, you learned the book stuff, but they were teaching us like way back then, like how to build a LinkedIn to network, and how to go out to social events and network, going and meeting people, how to dress. We had a literal like event on how to eat, like where your fork and knife went, how you put your towel, like, and it's all invaluable. Like what you should order, what you shouldn't order, and a lot of these things are just like intangibles that you just don't know about in business until you get into it. So I think business school helped tremendously with what I do. Do you need it to be successful? No, but it's one of those things that I definitely give a lot of credit to my success.
I think it's like when you do business, right? It's technical skills are important, but they're not as important as the soft skills.
100%. Like if you're going to be a CEO, especially and you're running a business, you have to put yourself out there. You have to network. You have to go do things, and it's a lot of it is a hustle. I hate the term hustle culture, but it's like a hustle mindset of where you have to just work really hard and really just hope that like you're planting seeds that are eventually going to go somewhere. And yeah, it's a lot of extracurricular activity, especially early on.
We've got quite a few questions about quotes, costs, any advice. I like what you said where, you got to find your niche or your unique selling point. How do I charge for what I'm doing?
Yeah, so everybody's a little different here. I would say do market research on what competitors, especially in your space, are charging. Like if you're just doing a medical vertical, for example, it might be different than just an overall consultancy. So do some research, go out and figure out like if you go look online, you can find people's quotes put publicly, especially if they're bidding like an RFP or something like that. And so you can find out what people are charging. We do it very simple. Like I know another company, for example, that had an actuary come in and they go down to the price point per IP address, and they have a full Excel spreadsheet that they type in the whole scope. For us, we just look at the scope as a generality and we say, okay, well, I'll give you a rough example. Like we're going to charge you $250 an hour, and we think this is going to cost, or this is going to take 40 hours to do this work. $10,000 right there. 40 times 250, you get to $10,000. That's our quote. And so you just kind of learn over time as like this is where the experience comes in with being a pen tester or working consultancy. Is you can say, okay, I know this is going to take me that long to do all these things. I want to charge this hourly rate. I'm just going to give this quote out. And so you got to figure out what your rate is going to be, what the competitor rates are, where's your sweet spot. For us, we positioned right in the middle. And you just got to figure out where you're going to be in that. So everybody's a little bit different on pricing, but especially early on, like you probably charge less a little early on, and then you kind of build out. Like we have clients from when we first started that we're still charging significantly less to clients that would start now. And just kind of a thank you for being a client with us, and we're not going to raise prices on that. But like you just have some of those. You don't want to be like, it's a fine balance too. You don't want to be too cheap. Like you don't want to be cheap and then everybody goes out there and says, oh, go use this company because they're cheap. You don't want to build that reputation, unless you do want to build that reputation. Just depends on where your positioning is.
But also, I don't know if you agree with this. I always like to say, get paid to learn. If you're in a full-time job, then learn some of the stuff that's not exactly your job, and then you can learn while you're getting paid. So when you decide to go on your own, you already know this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like I said, I think that going out there, and if you're starting to work on blogs and build SEO and build traffic to your website before you leave your job, that's better, because it takes 3 to 6 months for SEO to really kick in from something that you've written. And so you want to be able to generate a lot of traffic that way. And so, yeah, like the more you can do on somebody else's dime, the better off you're going to be in the long run, because you're not sitting there just hoping money's coming in. So you have to have a backup plan. You have to have like a lot of fail safes, and you have to know when is the point that I need to start looking for a job again if this does go south. Like when am I going to run out of money?
Yeah, I love what you explained in that video where you had like your whole financials and you were showing exactly your costs and your income and like what would happen if you didn't earn any income. It's so important that people do that. I see too many of these. I love what you said, like influencers selling this crazy lifestyle. You're like, give up your job and just do this. It's like a really bad advice. Rather do it on the side. Do a side hustle first, or make sure you've got all your fail safes in place, especially if you've got a family.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do your research for sure, and research your influencers too, right? Like, there's somebody out there, like one in particular I know that's just talking about how he went from broke to being rich as a pen tester, but like in buying all this property. But if you like do some OSINT, like his dad owned all this property, he was already rich to begin with, and they're just like selling you a dream for clicks. So like you got to be very careful on what information's out there. And like, do your due diligence. Go look at Reddit. Go look at LinkedIn. Do as much Googling and information as you can. And yeah, just like you gotta build your own narrative and your own process.
I love it. I think it's important that you give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. So tell us like the bad things. It's important so people aren't sold a dream that's not going to be true.
Yeah, I mean, there's people out there that are telling you things that just will not happen unless you like are incredibly successful. And it takes a long time and a lot of work to be successful. Like there's opportunities. Like if you want to be a business owner, you're going to have the most, the highest ceiling essentially. Like you will make the most money. You're not going to make nearly as much money, even if you go management C-level track. You're talking like 20 plus years of work to get to that. So if you want the most potential, yes, it's going to be going out and doing your own thing, but that's also going to be the most work. And you're going to have to make sacrifices, friendship sacrifices, family sacrifices, time. Like you're going to miss things and events because you're working. I remember specifically like very early on, when we launched the PMPT, we only had one other person on help desk. So like I was working help desk while doing training, while doing other things. Like I was working all the roles that I needed to do, marketing, everything.
Yeah.
I would be at like, we would go to basketball games because I love basketball. I would be at basketball games. A ticket would come in saying, "Hey, I need an exam reset." Well, I had to go in, log in to our server from my phone and perform a reset while we're sitting there waiting. Like I was working nonstop pretty much. Like we had an overnight shift person that was working basically 8 hours overnight. I was working those other 16 hours on the help desk. Like, those are the realities of what you're doing when you're a business owner. You're working all components and you're working all the time. And even if you are out with friends and family, like there's a chance that you're going to have to disappear for something else. And it sucks. Like it's a lot of sacrifice early on. You have to have like, you need buy-in from your friends and your family too, to go start this before you just say, I'm going to go do this. I think that's very important to get your spouse or friends or whoever's blessing, because they are a part of this too, and they're going to lose a significant amount of time with you as well. So you have to make sure like everybody's on board with that, including yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I love the that you're balancing the look at the success that you can get and the money that you can make, but be aware what's involved. And I'm really glad that you're saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be up here selling anybody a dream. It's fantastic lifestyle. I wouldn't change it for anything. Yep. But you have to know the realities of it too. You have to know what you're getting yourself into.
So let's switch. There are quite a few questions about remote jobs. Is it possible to get certified and then get a remote job, even if I'm not, say, based in the US, perhaps? What do you see on the market these days?
Yeah, let's start US first. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Especially since COVID kind of like accelerated the process, I think. But we were already moving to full remote. Like as a company, TCM Security was always a remote company. But you see a lot of companies now that either launch and are always fully remote, or because of COVID have shifted and just never went back. Pen test consultancy, especially, like even SOC to an extent, like can be done remotely. Like we ship a laptop. We don't have to go on site. We charge you a lot more money if you make us go on site. So it's one of those things that, yes, these are jobs for the most part that can be done remotely. I do think there's some benefit to working in office, especially early on. Like if you're learning from other people and you're able to go like actually sit down and look over somebody's shoulder to see them do something, that there's very, very nice benefits for that. But ultimately, you just have to make sure that you're joining a team. Like I think that's the biggest concern, is joining a team that can just say, yeah, here's a good training plan that we're going to have for you if you do this remotely. Here's how you're going to be able to shadow and watch and learn from other people, and making sure that communication is there. I think that's the hardest part and what's missed the most about being on site. But totally, you can work remotely in this field. And I think there's plenty of opportunities out there for remote work. You're obviously closing more doors if you're not open to working on site. But if your goal is just to be remote, then by all means, just be patient and wait for a remote job, because they are out there. For other countries, it's a little tough. Like for us, we do hire international. We hire them as contractors because we don't have like actual businesses in those countries. And so we have opportunities like that. There are some green card opportunities here, but basically there's some difficulties, right? Like in order to be able to work for most places, work as a resident of another country for an organization at their company in their country, you are taking a job away from somebody potentially in that country. And so the way they look at it is you have to be skilled enough, and there's not enough talent pool from that country, then they have to go out and hire from somewhere else. Pen testing is one of those, especially the more senior you get, the more likely you are to get a job in one of those positions. But like, it's one that's pretty difficult. I've seen some unique ways of people doing it. Like I know some people that have come out to either Canada or the US for a master's program, utilize that to then find an internship or a job, and then they got sponsored and were able to stay. But it's a journey. It's not something that's going to be an easy feat. But yeah, the opportunities are out there, especially with larger companies. But you have to be able to be incredibly talented to do that. So it just depends on your technical skill set, and a little bit of it's luck as well.
Heath, I'm studying. I've just started. It's overwhelming. It's too much. What am I going to do?
That's a good question. We feel that, and we feel burnout a lot. And so I think prioritizing how you're studying and understanding what you need and what you maybe don't need right away is good as well. And then taking breaks is good. Now, I'll give this all an example. But when I was studying for my pen test journey, I was already past all my foundationals. I was really getting through, I was doing the OCP, and back in the day, there used to be a whole section on buffer overflows. And that section I got to, and I just like did not understand. I wanted to stop. Like it was really impeding everything that I wanted to do. I knew I had to get through it. But it was one of those things that I was like, you know what, I'm just going to back burner this right now, and I'm going to go study something else that excites me. And so I actually went back through and just did all my other studies, got through everything else. I kept building that momentum. Again, kind of like a snowball downhill where, hey, I'm just building this momentum. I'm getting more excited. And I decided like, I'm going to study the things that really excite me, and I'm going to come back to some of the things that don't. And sometimes you have that luxury, sometimes you don't. Like you need to study networking before you go study networking security. So sometimes you have to get through some of the boring stuff to get to the more fun stuff. But I built upon that. I went back and then I studied that, understood it, and then I went out there and I taught it, and that helped me retain it as well. And so it's one of those things that like you need to prioritize on what you think is best for you and what's going to keep you more motivated. And if that includes skipping sections, perfectly fine. Taking breaks is very important. It's easy to burn out, especially if you're working a full-time job or you got a family or just studying full-time. Doesn't matter. Like this is very easy field to burn out in. So it's one of those things that like, hey, take a day off. Or I see people, they get a certification and go right to the next one. Like if you've got the momentum and you're feeling fine, perfect. But like, don't be afraid to take a day or a week off, or if you need time to just like decompress before you go back into it, perfectly fine. And so ultimately you need to find the motivation. Like nobody's going to find that motivation for you. And there's some reality checks. Like if you're studying the basics right now and you really hate it and you don't think like this is for you, it's possible that it's not for you. Like you may need to listen to yourself and say like, I don't actually think I like this stuff. So, and I've had people come to me and thank me. Literally, like somebody came to me and said, I loved your class so much because it told me like this was the career I did not want to do. And so, like yeah, it's like you realize like, hey, maybe I want to work in cyber. Maybe it's not pen testing, you know? And so you got to find your path, and everybody's a little bit different, but make sure you're taking breaks, and mental health's important. Make sure you're spending time with people and getting away from the books. There's the books will be there when you come back. Just make sure you're finding that balance.
And it didn't happen in a day, right? Your journey was a number of years.
Yeah, many years, and that's the thing is like we live in this world of social media where all the positivity is brought to the top, but you don't know what people have done and all the failures behind the scenes that go on. You don't know the journey, and so like we talked about imposter syndrome, and one of the big things that I always say is like run your own race, and your goal is to be better than you were yesterday. And so if you're running, like say you want to run a 6-minute mile and you idolize somebody that's running a 6-minute mile, cool. I'm running 10 right now. Well, I'm not going to get to 6 tomorrow, but if I can get to 9:59 tomorrow and then 9:58 the next day and slowly work up, who knows how long that person's been running. And same thing, like you're going to find people that are just naturally more talented than you. Like they're going to be great. They're going to accelerate at a faster speed, and they may learn 2 times faster than you do. That's fine. Run your own race. No, like all that matters is that you are doing what's best for you, and that you're studying at your own pace and you're getting better a little bit every day. And that's all you need to care about. It's cool to idolize. It's cool to say like, oh, like I want to be like that person someday, but don't be like, oh, that person's better than me, because that's not a healthy mindset. You can be competitive and try to get to places, but as long as you're competing with yourself the majority of the time, I think that's where you really need to be.
I love that. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone starts at a different point in life. Compete with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people are like, literally, some people can just go out there and run, never running before, a 7-minute mile, and you're sitting first time running and you're running 10. Cool. Like you're naturally more gifted and talented in this area. I'm going to have to work maybe a little bit harder to get there. It doesn't mean at the end of the day that I can't be better than that person if I want to be, or maybe I'm content be running a 7-minute or mile or 8-minute mile. Like whatever makes you happy at the end of the day and you're improving, that's all that really matters. Like you get that self-improvement, you're getting better just each day.
There's a question about tools that you use. So a few about like, as an example, if you're hacking Windows, do you use WSL? How do you hack like AD? And then also programming languages, do you use Rust or Python or C++? Perhaps you could just tell us like some of the tools that you use and recommend.
Yeah, so our base install is, it's a Windows machine. So if I ship a laptop out to a client to do a internal pen test, which is mostly Active Directory, we'll ship a laptop that is base Windows, and then you also have a virtual machine with Kali built on top of it. And so I can log into that Kali machine. I can do all my Linux commands, anything I need to do in there. From Windows, there's some Windows command line things that I can do in there as well. Different tools. Like I prefer to run Nessus inside of Windows versus running it inside of Kali. And so just depending on the toolkit that I'm using, Kali Linux comes with a bunch of awesome tools already built in. We've got a publicly available tool that was written by one of our staff members named DeWalt, and his tool is called Pimp My Kali. So like if you want to know what we do when we perform a pen test, we literally install Kali, run Pimp My Kali under the new feature. It installs all the tools that we use and need, and then we go off and do that. So for us, Nessus, like a vulnerability scanner, is really important. There's a toolkit called Impacket, which is very important for AD pen testing. Responder is very important. So it just depends on what you're doing, but all of our builds, for the most part, are running Windows and Linux at the same time. If I'm doing a web app pen test, you can run web app inside of Linux. I prefer to run like Burp Suite outside of Linux. I prefer it on Windows machine again, and I'll run it there. If I need a specific command or maybe a tool that's just easier to run inside of a Linux machine, I'll do it there. From a programming language standpoint, I think Python is a great first language, something that you should definitely learn. Building upon that, if you want to learn scripting, I think Bash is great. Like I'll build a lot of Python scripts and then automate it with Bash, and so that way it just runs on like a specific shell script or whatever I need to do, and that's good. Rust is good too. Rust is more I want to say like it's higher level but lower level too. Like it's great. Like depending on what you want to do. If you're getting into exploit development, C++ could be really good, or C could be really good too, just depending on what you're doing. PowerShell and C# are really good for development for like Windows-based tools and exploits. So it really kind of depends on what you want to do. Ultimately, like if you're getting into exploit development and programming that way, it depends on what you want to learn. But if you're just like, hey, I want to like automate some things, I want to maybe build out some basic tools, Python's enough, and Bash is on top of that is perfectly fine. Bash isn't that hard to learn after you have some programming foundations.
Heath, probably the last question, maybe, but I'm going to throw it to you as well. But one of the questions was top cyber myths. I mean, we've spoken about myths, overnight success, you don't see the hard work, but any like myths that people are believing that they should be aware of?
I think the success one is the biggest one, right? Like people are out there and they're selling the idea that everybody's making six figures, everybody's making big six figures, right? Like this is luxury lifestyle. It's true to some people are doing that, but for the most part, like you're going to probably start at a lower salary. You're going to have to work your way up. You're going to be constantly studying. I would say one of the myths is like you can just coast in this career. You can't coast. This is one of those things, like this is for personality types that love to study. Like I absolutely love learning new things. And that's one of the things that excites me about cyber. For some people, they do want to just come in and say, I've learned what I need to know. I'm good. This is not a field for that. But so yeah, if you're willing to put in the work, you can get to those higher salary points over time. But it's one of those things that's going to take time. So don't think overnight success is going to happen. I think there's no opportunities or roles out there is a myth as well. There's tons of opportunities. Like the job market is growing. You may need to pivot into other areas. Like a lot of people tried to jump in the deep end right away. I want to be a pen tester. That's great. But what have you done to be a pen tester? Have you gotten all the necessary certifications? Are you going out there and you're networking? You're trying to get into a field that is like you're saying, hey, there's no entry level jobs, but entry level job is like help desk. Entry level job for cybersecurity is like a SOC analyst. You're trying to like skip the line and go all the way. You're trying to get into like Calc 3 or 4 without having done Calc 1. And so is it possible? Yeah, a lot of self-study, go out there and learn resources, build up your repertoire, get into that. Yeah, absolutely. But I think a lot of people need to step back and maybe look and say, okay, maybe if I go work as a SOC analyst first, get some experience, continue to study, then I can break into cyber in another place. Like, don't be afraid to dip your toe in another water to get to where you want to be down the road. So it just depends. Again, we talked about situations, but it just depends on everybody's situation. But there are roles out there. There are positions out there. And I'm all advocating for shooting for the stars when you put your resume in, but don't go put a resume in for a director level job if you've never worked in cyber either. Like, we see that. And so you're just muddying the waters. And, we are more likely to discard your email and your resume if you're submitting for jobs that you have no business for. And so like other companies are doing that too. So just think through these things. But really, that's it. Like, I think that this is a great field. I think that like you have to be aware of the work that goes into it. Great rewards if you're willing to put in that work. It's not for everybody. Burnout is real. And it's one of those fields that like it's not for everybody. But if you can do the time and the work and put in that effort, the rewards are really great for what it is.
Heath, I want to thank you so much for sharing, and giving back to the community. Just for everyone who doesn't know, I've put a bunch of links below, including, Heath, you got to tell me, how many hours of free training is there on your YouTube channel?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Like,
you've got that long course. Sorry, I'm referring to that. You've got your part of your course there, right?
Oh yeah. So our practical ethical hacking course, we update all the time, and so yearly we pretty much put out the updated version of that, at least the first half of it, and so that way you can go out there and kind of learn the foundations to ethical hacking before getting into like the Active Directory and the web and the more advanced stuff. So if you're looking to just find, a course to kind of see, hey, is ethical hacking for me? That's a great starting point. And there's 15 hours of content there to sitting for you.
So Heath, you're very well known, great YouTube channel, very active on social media, but just perhaps for people who are seeing this for the first time, where can people reach you? And perhaps if they've got questions, like reach out, do you have a Discord, something like that?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Heath Adams. On YouTube is the Cyber Mentor, and pretty much any other social media platforms, the Cyber Mentor. I'm not on X. I have an account there, but don't bother trying to message me. TCM security across all platforms is a great way to get help too. So if you go to LinkedIn or X or Instagram or Facebook, we're everywhere. And then we do have a Discord channel. So if you go to discord.gg/TCM, that'll take you to our Discord community, which is really good. Like if you're looking for somewhere to just go and interact with other people, we've got a lot of things. It's not all just TCM. Like that is where we give all of our course support, but also there are channels for computer programming and networking and blue teaming and different certifications beyond our own, and just ways to talk to people about different topics and really engage with the community. And that type of engagement is really good networking. So if you're looking for a place to go and meet people and maybe potentially interact and find a job, like doing so in a Discord channel is a great way to find other people that are in this field and be able to communicate and network with them.
So for everyone who's watching, please go and subscribe to Heath's channel. We're getting close to 1 million. He wants to get to 1 million as soon as possible. So please go and sub, show the love, and also go and look in Discord. It's amazing about networking, amazing how much you can learn just by interacting with other people. So I'll put all those links below. Go and watch the videos, go and interact and network with other people. Really appreciate you sharing, Heath, and inspiring the next generation and making it easier, right? So you went through the hard journey and the things that happened to you that perhaps weren't the best way of going, like some of the certs that you did that perhaps weren't the best. And I really want to thank you for giving back to the community and like lowering the prices.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, the goal, and for anybody watching, should be your goal too, is to try to make it easier for the next person behind you. A lot of people are so busy like lifting the barriers when they should be removing them. So just challenge yourself to do that. And how can I make this journey easier for the next person?
That's great, Heath. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, David. I appreciate it.